and welcome back to another episode of The Lateral. I am Mike Settle. That is Dustin Franklin. This is a podcast all about the past and the future of college football. Dustin, uh, we had a scheduled episode this week for SMU's death penalty, which, was put into the more recent pop culture consciousness through the 30 for 30, the Pony Express that ESPN did a couple years back, or I guess, golly, that's been 6, 7 years now, hasn't it? That was our scheduled episode. Yeah, time flies when college football is in full swing.
Yeah.
That was our scheduled episode, and we're still going to do that episode because there's some stuff ESPN left out that we would like to touch on. But we also want to touch on how it affected college football's future after the fact, and I think that's a point I'd like to hammer home with that. So we're going to shelve that. We'll give you that next week. While we decided to do that episode, and yesterday something happened in between that time. And obviously, as we've said many times on this show, I'm a Florida State fan. You are a Florida State fan. We're fans of the game of college football. Even if we weren't Florida State fans, we would be doing this same episode today. Yesterday, legendary coach, and I do use that word correctly, legendary coach Bobby Bowden passes away, 91 years old. He'd been suffering from pancreatic cancer, which that announcement came out about 3 weeks ago now. Just hit the – even if you can see it coming, it doesn't sit any better with you. And again, just right off the top, I want to give my thoughts and condolences to Miss Ann Bowden and Terry and Tommy and all his whole family and his close friends. That first group of people, and then those players who are deeply affected that viewed him as a father figure. I want to give my thoughts and prayers to them. But Dustin, Bobby Bowden no longer with us, but always with us in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bobby Bowden is one of those guys that transcends the sport. He was bigger than the game. He was one of those guys that, he went on the Jay Leno show, and he just had that kind of personality that everyone gravitated towards. You can't really say anything bad about the man. I mean, he lived his life the way that he felt was 100% right, and that's what he strove to do. And Dan Lebitard, I thought, had some very good comments on him today. He mentioned him on his show, and it's no secret, Dan Lebitard's a Miami fan.
Absolutely.
Miami alum, I believe. And he mentioned Bobby Bowden as being that one pure good guy in college football. He said, anyone else you can't really look at like that. Nick Saban, you respect him. He's great. He wins. But you don't get that same kind of he's a good guy from him. Bear Bryant, he used an example. Same thing. And then he tried to say, well, who's second? Who's the second best guy to ever coach football that just everybody liked? And they couldn't even come up with anyone. That's how big the gap is. And so, I mean, that's a testament to the character of Bobby Bowden.
Yeah, I mean, he transcends Florida State. And I think it's very evident by the city of Tallahassee if you just look at that city as an existing place. Without Bobby Bowden's impact on Florida State and Florida State football, Tallahassee doesn't look anything like it does now. I don't think. I know it's the capital of Florida, but if you talk to people that were there before the explosion, it's a little bit of a different place. And that's not just changing with the times. That's the effect of Bobby Bowden deciding to plant his roots right there in Tallahassee. Because again, a million job offers came along. He could have left 1,000 times over for Alabama or the NFL game calling numerous times, which I don't think that would have fit him so well. So I'm glad he decided to stay at Florida State because, Dustin, there's a reason that it's called the Bowden Dynasty. Now, prior to Bobby Bowden's arrival, there was a season here or there where Florida State was competitive, but nothing like after Bobby arrived. And really, it started in year 2. But if you really want to look at the facts, what is it? 1986 started the 14 straight years of
87.
1987 started the 14 straight years of top 5 finishes, and I don't think that'll ever be well. I mean, Alabama's getting close, but I don't think it'll ever be duplicated. At least not to that degree, not at that time. And it's and that's just on the field. I mean, and so we'll start on the field, and then we can kind of delve into off the field stuff because I have a personal story with Coach Bowden, and if you do, I would love for you to share that as well. But just on the field, what he did for the game of college football and us as Florida State fans, I think speaks for itself with his name on the field.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bobby Bowden took over in 1976 for Florida State. Daryl Mudrow was the head coach 2 seasons
Mudra,
prior.
my man.
Yeah, he really tore it up in Tallahassee. He went 4-18 in those 2 seasons, and
Oh,
so but that was not atypical. Florida State was not a very good program. Like you said, there were some seasons here and there, but overall, they were not a powerhouse. And as Lebitard put it today, they really had no business ever becoming a powerhouse. But Coach Bowden took over in '76. They went 5-6. He didn't have another losing season. That's incredible. Coached there
yeah.
34 years, had 33 straight winning seasons. And that's just unheard of. First of all, being at the same school for 34 years is unheard of today.
Absolutely.
Just the unfortunate side of coaching is coaches don't get that long of a leash. Now, he had results almost immediately, so I think he would have been
Right.
fine regardless. But, you see coaches bounce around doing some things. Oh, that's a different coach quote. But coaches bouncing around to different jobs and exploring their options, and then schools growing impatient. Look at Mark Richt at Georgia as a perfect example. Mark Richt won football games, but he didn't win the big game. So let's finally cut ties.
Right.
So, Bowden he built a powerhouse out of, like you said, 14 straight seasons in the top 5. Unheard of.
Well, we've talked about it on this show before. Some of those late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s Florida State teams, if the playoff were around, they probably would have won a national championship because by season's end, they were the best team in the country.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because I heard a quote from Steve Spurrier today. Spurrier and Bowden were notorious rivals, right? And I
Fantastic.
listened to an interview from Coach Bowden where he said, the media always like to make it seem like we had this feud, but I always liked Steve, and I think Steve liked me, and they did. They had a lot of respect for each other. But Spurrier was quoted once as saying that Bowden in those late '80s, early '90s years, Coach Bowden played the hardest schedule in football because he had no obligation to, but he still scheduled Florida and Miami every season. And he said that if he hadn't done that, FSU would probably be sitting on 5 or 6 championships instead of the 2 that they got under Bowden, because there was several seasons where him or Florida knocked each other out, or him or Miami knocked each other out of a national championship.
Absolutely. I tell you right now, if Florida and Florida State didn't play every year, there's a couple years where Spurrier has him a title before he finally wins one in '96 because
Yep.
Florida State knocked them out
Yep.
of winning a championship. And so, yeah, I mean, I only caught the tail end of that rivalry because of my age, but I love those two going back and forth. It's just
Yeah.
it was great for the game, and it was a dying breed at the time, and it's definitely gone now. Just look, I don't like the New York Times using the words folksy showman because that's garbage. And if you printed that, you're a loser. Okay. That's strong words, but I don't care. But what I mean by folksy is just that they're both ball coaches. They're not here for the suit and tie, being professional. They're both football coaches that have different priorities. Spurrier is notorious for letting his assistants go home, see your family, do something. Same thing with Bobby. Go home, see your family. Faith, family, and football were the 3 F's, and in that order, as he liked to say. And those fared results on the field. And really, man, I know we talked about championships. Listen, man, getting two national championships, the first ever BCS national championship, which is something that he can claim. To me, it's a legacy. His legacy extends beyond that. And now, while of course it would be nice to hang a couple more banners, don't get me wrong, as a Florida State fan. But when you really look at his impact on the game, it's not about championship. Odell Hagan spoke with Florida State media yesterday, defensive line coach there. He's been the interim head coach numerous times now. He spoke on what was really important about Coach Bowden, where he came down and recruited him, and he told that story about coming into his house, his little house there in Bartow, Florida, and eating pork chops and collard greens, and he remembered his mom's cooking and the sweet tea and everything else, and just those kinds of stories. That's how Bobby Bowden built his legacy. He
Mm-hmm.
he he built it in people's living rooms, not so much on the football field.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And just seeing the stories of the former players, like you said, Odell saying that. But then, there's another quote that I really liked. James Coleman played for Coach Bowden from 03 to 05, started fullback, someone that I'm proud to call a friend. James
Absolutely.
Coleman said his two favorite quotes from Coach Bowden that he wants on his tombstone when he passes. Coach Bowden said, quote, "See that, James? He wasn't no sissy. He'd hit you." And then he also said a year later, he said, "See, the thing about James, I ain't never known him to back down." And those words, the reason those words stand out to James is just because he said that he felt like he would run through someone's face mask just to have the honor of Coach Bowden giving him a tomahawk sticker for his helmet. There's something about the man that just players gravitated towards. He wasn't the rah-rah in your face. He wasn't the authoritarian Nick Saban type coach.
Right.
Now he also wasn't the laid-back, loosey-goosey coach that we've seen not be successful.
Right.
He was disciplined, but he disciplined his players because you respected him so much. You just want to do that. And it starts in the home, like you said, and then just the way that you felt he truly cared about you and he truly understood and respected you.
Right. And I mean, look, that touch extends to his former players, which again, so many former Florida State players, you know, on social media reaching, Peter Warwick had really nice words, I thought. Everett Dock, guys like that really extend. Corey Simon, there's just a lot of former
Danny
players that had a
Kanell.
lot of.
Yep.
Yeah, Danny Kanell. Yeah, absolutely, had a lot of nice things to say. That extends to the media that covered him too. I mean, he kind of treated everybody with respect. And I know. I mean, we know people that work for Florida State media, guys over at warchant.com, Ira, Corey, Jeff Cameron, they all had really nice things to say about Bobby. They told their personal stories. I thought Ira Chaffel had a really nice piece about his interaction with him. And, the story there was Ira wrote a pretty harsh article about Jimbo following the 2012 Florida game, which rightfully so, there was some criticism to be had there, but in hindsight was probably a little too harsh. And Bobby, he spoke to Bobby and Bobby said, "Hey, they're going to run you out of town, boy. You better relax." And in the next season, Jimbo won a national championship. So I think Bobby Bowden knew what he was talking about there. Now look, again, you mentioned Dan Lebertar. God, so many different people had stories. I'm going to share one more and let you go. I saw an article today that came. It was, I believe it was the 05 Miami game, where right before that game, Coach Bowden lost a grandson in a car accident due to the inclement weather from Hurricane Francis. And he lost that game, and everyone always said Bobby's good after a win, but he's great after a loss. And so he spoke to the media and said, "You guys have everything you need." And he walked out and he took his hat off and he signed it and he handed it to the reporter that wrote the story. I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, but he said, "Here, give that to your grandson," because he remembered him and he had heard that he had just became a grandpa, and he said, "Here, give that hat to your grandson." And that's just the kind of person Bobby Bowden was. Man, that story kind of got me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I was wondering why I was crying in my work truck right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a story too that I read today that just shows the character of Bobby Bowden. So let me pull it up here. It's in the Gainesville Sun. It was actually written July 25th, so it was written a couple weeks ago, by David. Let me go up here. His name is David Whitley, writer for the Gainesville Sun. So in enemy territory, he had nothing but nice words to say about Coach Bowden. And this story kind of stuck out. He said that he hadn't seen Coach Bowden in 3 or 4 years when the free shoes used story was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So I guess that was 94. He said he was working in Tampa, and he went to Sarasota to find him. He was on a spring booster tour and speaking to a packed hotel room, and he was pulled away before he could make it over to speak with him. So he scrambled to the elevators in pursuit. He saw that an elevator had stopped on the 6th floor, and he punched that number. There was only one suite on that floor, and he had no idea who might be in it. After about a minute of nervously pacing the hall, he decided to find out. He knocked, and what did I see when the door opened? Bowden, in his boxers, chewing a cigar. "Hey, boy, what are you doing here?" And he said he sheepishly explained his mission, and he just invited him right in. He sat on the couch and told him how, he didn't know about the rule breaking and all that. But all he could think was, would any other coach in America be sitting here in his underwear offering me a Coke from the wet bar? No. I can confidently say no. And so I just that made me chuckle. Now this article, this is a really good piece. I recommend everyone reading it. Like I said, it's in the Gainesville Sun. It's called St. Bobby is the Ultimate Class Act. And they also tell the story. I'm glad they include this in here. Probably my favorite Steve Spurrier, Bobby Bowden moment. 1998, the brawl happens. And Florida quarterback throws a ball at Coach Bowden and missed him. And he asked him, he didn't get punished or anything. A reporter asked Coach Bowden, what would you do, or what would happen if your quarterback threw a football at Steve? And he said, well, he would have hit him. And so I just the quirky, the quick wit, I love everything about that, because like I said, he admits that he's always liked Steve Spurrier. It's just you got to get those jabs in with the rival. And that's a really well article by David Whitley. I recommend everyone reading that.
Here's a fun story about that. I actually interviewed Doug Johnson on a previous podcast I used to do, and I asked him about that story. I wish I still had that clip, because I would definitely put it in right here in post. His answer about that. He chuckles at that every time somebody tells him that. He say, yeah, and in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't hit him, but at the time, man, I wish I had hit him.
Yeah.
So he was a good sport about it. Yeah, man, it's crazy to me how much of an effect that someone can have on you that you really don't know.
Yeah.
I talked about, me and you talked about this when it came to, the time when Kobe Bryant passed, where it's like, golly, you don't know Kobe, but man, you feel like you do. He was in our houses so much. And,
Yep.
Bobby to that same effect, even more so. My whole family, we're Florida State fans, and we've been gathering around the TV together to watch Florida State games since before I was born. And, definitely my immediate family, that's just what we do. Florida State football brings us together. We may have differences Monday through Friday, but Saturday, no matter what time the game is, you put those aside and you watch Florida State together. And Bobby was the central point of that for so long. I'm not going to sit here and hide it. We talked about this before. Towards the end of Coach Bowden's run, me at that time, at my age, I was ready for a change. And I wasn't the only one. I'm sure there was a lot of people that felt maybe it was time to pass the baton on. But make no mistake about it, that doesn't mean that I didn't love what the man did and who the man is, and respected him greatly. And so from my own family, I took a lot of heat for that. For voicing my opinion on that. But I think even Bobby, in hindsight, would probably admit it was time to step away. And I'm not here to dig that back up. That's a whole episode in and of itself. But I just, golly, man, it feels like a passing of someone you knew, like your grandpa or your great grandpa has passed, and it's wild to me every time I think about it. Man, I know I think you may have been the one that had the same book, but the St. Bobby book was in my living room for years. There it is. Hey, Called the Coach is also a great book.
You talking about that one? Or are you talking about that one?
Hey,
talking about
there's
that one?
I'm about to say there's four. There's that, and then there's the St. Bobby book that has him and all the players on the front. I mean, there's a lot of books. Called the Coach is definitely a recommended read, though. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got a page marked here, and this was, you kind of touched on. I wasn't going to touch on until later, but you brought up the end of Bobby's tenure at Florida State. That's the one thing that, through all the crab leg jokes that we've endured, through all the free shoes you jokes that we've endured, the thing that makes me the saddest about Florida State is how he was treated in that last
Absolutely.
year or two.
No doubt about that.
Because he said that he just wanted to coach one more year. It's not like he wanted to coach forever. He just wanted one more year.
Right.
And this quote right here, he said that President Weatherall gave him two options. The first option was to return to Florida State as an ambassador coach, in which I'd have no on-field duties during practices or games. He said, "Do you mean I'm the head coach but can't go on the field?" President Weatherall said, "Yes." "Well, that option is out. What's the other option?" "The other option is that we won't renew your contract." So Bobby
That's rough.
resigned. Bobby retired. And he said in an interview with Tim Brando that the only reason he retired was to save embarrassment for Florida State, because he knew that if he let them fire him, that was the Florida State would take a huge hit in the eye of the public because of them firing a legend like Bobby Bowden. That's class right there.
Absolutely.
I would not have that level of class. You want to fire me? You're not going to let me come back after all I've done? Fire me.
Yeah, you're gonna have to
Yeah, I'm not
fire
leaving
me.
on my own.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
just pure class from Coach Bowden. Now,
Absolutely.
you also mentioned Florida State football being such a part of your life growing up, and it's brought your family together. I've got kind of a different story than most because I have lived in East Tennessee my entire life. So Coach Bowden really means more to me than I ever understood. And what I mean by that is I became a Florida State fan in the mid to late 90s because my dad liked Florida State. Dad was never, I don't remember Dad ever being a Tennessee Volunteers fan. And I just remember Dad go to the mall, buy Florida State hat if they had one. I'd always have the Florida State starter jackets and all that. Because in East Tennessee, we got a weather. I could actually wear starter jackets. Unlike, people in Tallahassee don't have that luxury.
I had them, but I didn't wear them a lot because it was hot as hell in Central Florida.
So just always like Florida State. Now, 1998 comes around, and Florida State plays Tennessee in the national championship. Here's the thing. I had brain surgery that year. T. Martin came to visit me in the hospital. I spent time with the Tennessee Volunteers football team at practice. Coach Fulmer was very gracious to me. So, yes, in hindsight, I wish that Florida State had won that, obviously, because I'm a Florida State fan through and through. But at the time, I was a 10-year-old kid. Yeah, Tennessee can win this one because they've been so great to me.
Of course.
I take that back now. In present day, no. I wish Florida State would have won that. A healthy Chris Winkie, and we win by 2 touchdowns. But anyway.
Oh, hey, man. But you got to celebrate the 98 title and the 99 title.
And the 99.
2 different teams.
So
Good for you.
We're in the first ever BCS bowl game, championship game. We win the second. So, yeah, it was good. But anyway, so back to my story about becoming a Florida State fan. I'm 22 years old, maybe 23. And Dad had, in his later years, God rest his soul, my dad became a Texas Longhorn fan because he was living in Texas, and he converted to a Texas Longhorn fan.
Damn it.
Yeah. But he finally told me one day, I was over at his house. He had a house here in Knoxville as well. And I was over at his house one day, and he said, "You know why I was a Florida State fan when you were growing up, right?" I said, "No." He said, "I never told you?" I said, "No." It's because at work, they would all bet on the games, and it didn't matter who Florida State played. He was betting Florida State in the spread because Bobby Bowden always put money in Dad's pocket. And so I owe Bobby Bowden a lot because Bobby Bowden paid for my Christmas presents, my birthday, I'm sure, because he used to demolish the spread in the 90s.
Spread machine.
Yes.
Is what he was. Absolutely.
Good teams win, great teams covered. Bobby Bowden did both. So, yeah. So that's how I came to be a Florida State fan. I had no idea that it was through nefarious means. All these years, I just thought Dad liked Florida State, so I like Florida State. But turns out it's because Bobby Bowden was keeping Dad's pockets lined, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Man, I don't look. I mean, being a Florida State fan is just kind of in our family. So I don't remember the exact moment, but I got 2 quick stories. I mean, you mentioned the 99, or I mentioned the 99 title game, then you did as well. Sorry, Michael Vick, but it had to happen to you. My apologies. But hey, I was 7 years old, and I really got what 9-year-old or what 7-year-old kid that likes football wouldn't get glued to that team of all teams. I mean, Jesus. But I got glued to that team and watched a lot of their games, and I remember my parents not letting me stay up for the second half of the game, being ticked off about it. I pouted like a little baby, rightfully so, by the way, if you're listening to Mike and Cherry. I completely felt robbed, gypped. Here was our crowning moment, and I don't get to see it. Not so fast, my friend. Yours truly snuck around the corner and watched the rest of the game laying on the floor like like his head's on his hands. I watched that game, and every time somebody walked by the hall, I'd slowly creep back into the room. And then when no one was out, I'd come back out and look around the corner, make sure we were still winning. That's my first very vivid memory. And the lasting image in my head is Bobby holding up the crystal ball.
Yep.
I remember seeing that from around the corner like it was yesterday. The memory is ingrained in me, and it's just
wearing those shooting goggles.
I was gonna say this man went into the practice range after the title game. Where are the earplugs at, son? I mean, Hey, that was the style in '99. The see-through Oakleys. Oh God, yeah. Or the Nike. I'm sure they had to wear Nike. I don't know if it was exclusive then, but pretty sure that was the style, man. And it's
we could do a whole episode on Bobby Bowden's fashion sense because that man had drip, as the kids say.
Hey, they should just go back and look at old pictures of Bobby. And hey, Garden Gold people, if you are listening, just go back and start selling all his old merch. Just replicate it all. It's so simple. I mean, I would buy a ton of it myself. Trip. But quick story. So in 2009, I'm on a recruiting trip. I put that in air quotes because, guys, I'm 5'10" and I play nose guard. I had no shot. But family friend of ours, Odell Higgins, got the hookup for me, and I got to experience what it was like to be a Division I recruit for a day. Yeah, man, I got to go do all that, and I got to meet Kirk Herbstreit and Lee Corso down the field. They're talking to me, asking what other schools offered me. I made up some BS. I don't remember what I said, but nobody was the answer. But I got to experience that. But how that relates to Bobby is, they get us all in this room. And by the way, I'm on the same recruiting trip as LaMarcus Joyner and some of those other people that turned that around. Jimbo was already there as the offensive coordinator. This is Bobby's last season. And Bobby has the whole room. As soon as he walks in and starts speaking, whole room, he's got that attention. And he's talking and he looks right at me. I don't remember exactly what he said because it scared the piss out of me that he looked right at me and said, "Ain't that right, son?" And I said, "Me?" He goes, "Yeah, you, son. Ain't that right?" I don't remember anything he said before that. I said, "That's right, coach." And he said, "That's what I thought." And then, I just always thought that was cool because, man, there's no way he didn't look right at me and tell, "Who's this guy? We're not taking this guy." But he didn't make me feel that way. He made me feel like I belonged in the room. I didn't, but he made me feel like I belonged in the room. And it was, it's something that, a lot of people, my family sat in the room with us and they got to experience that. And that was a really cool story. He made me feel important for at least for that short amount of time. And that's kind of just how, that's kind of how Bobby did things, man. It didn't matter who you were. He made you feel like you meant something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't have the stories like that. That's awesome. I unfortunately never got to meet Coach Bowden. But I've seen countless pictures of him welcoming anyone and everyone in, sit on the couch, take a picture with him, and he'll chat with you. You heard stories up until he passed. Coach Bowden's address is listed in the Tallahassee phone book. You could mail him stuff. He'd sign it, and he'll mail it back to you. That's just the kind of guy he was. He cared. I don't feel like enough people in the world care, let alone enough coaches care, but he cared.
Right. Man, so I emailed him and Ann to try to get a video for my dad's 50th birthday. And I had gotten Mike Martin and Derek Brooks and all these other people to send a video. And I sent one to Bobby. I thought, what the heck? Probably say no, but it's worth a shot. And while he didn't send a video, it was only because he was on vacation. He typed back to me in all capital, and I know it was him because it was all capital letters. And he said, "Mike," or "Hey, Mike," with an exclamation point. Something about, sorry, I can't do the video. I can't get figure out how to get this thing to work. But tell your dad I said happy birthday and go Seminoles and 50's young and he's a whippersnapper to me and all this other stuff. And it was real. I still have the email. And so that was always, hey, when I got the email from Bobby Bowden, I'm not going to give out his email at such and such at gmail.com or whatever it was. I'm like, that's freaking cool, man. I saved the
Yeah.
screenshot from it and everything. So, again, just taking the time to even email me back about that is really,
Yeah.
really awesome. And I mean, again, it's just another thing that I'll always have.
Yeah. For sure.
And oh no, go ahead, Dustin.
Oh, you're fine. No, go ahead.
Oh well, yeah. So, we kind of before we started recording this episode, we kind of touched on what do we want to talk about? What do we want to say? We've done some personal effects and how how Coach Bowden's affected us and the former players and the media members. But obviously, we watched a lot of games under Coach
Mm-hmm.
Bowden, and I'm going to throw to you first. I'm going to put you on the spot. I don't know if you've ran through any in your head. What would you say? Not national championships, because that's almost cheating.
Yeah.
So any non-national championship game. What is your favorite game you've watched? Maybe it wasn't even a great game, or maybe it was just one moment in that game that encapsulated what you thought about Bobby Bowden. Just what was your favorite Bobby Bowden moment in game that you remember seeing?
Man, it's hard to say just one. I obviously remember, I believe it was 2002 or 3, Florida game. Big brawl breaks out. And I'll never forget where I was at that. I was at a bowling alley, and just that they had the Florida State game on. I don't remember what I was there. I think it was a birthday party or something. And I just remember being glued to the TV just because the atmosphere was rocking. It was a rainy game. It was a big brawl. But the moment that I'm proudest of was the 2009 bowl game. I know that's weird, but my
No,
God, Bobby getting to go out on top
awesome.
against the school where he got to start out. I mean, that's fairy book right there. He got to coach against West Virginia in the bowl game. And so, but just seeing the players carry him off the field. And then the post-game interview, Bobby says, they must have sent the little guys because they could barely pick me up. I just that's Bobby. And so, honestly, it's probably that 2009 West Virginia, the bowl game against West Virginia, just because of what it meant for him to get to go out on top. That was the Gator Bowl.
Yeah. A lot of people we know were at that game. I didn't get to make that one. That was unfortunate. But I was ready for change, but I sure did cry that day. I can tell you that.
Yep.
Absolutely. And so one game that sticks out to me, and look, because of our age, no, I can't go back to 91 and 92 and game of the century against Notre Dame. All that stuff is awesome, but I don't have any recollection of that. So from about 98 on, I have a pretty good recall of all of those games. And there's the and again, this is during the down times in Bobby's later run, but every now and then, man, you just get a win you don't expect. And we talked about it on this show in our very first episode. Bobby's reaction to the Boston College win in 07 is awesome. His face on the sideline almost was, oh, wow, we won the game. The post-game interview was, I don't think anybody thought we could win. Here we are. We won the game anyway.
Yeah.
He said, that Matt Ryan kid's pretty good, huh? I say, oh, yeah, he is pretty good. He's still in the NFL. I think Bobby knew what he was talking about. A story, I know we moved on to some of our favorite games, but two stories that come to mind. One, I know this is like, against my Seminole card, if you will, but I've read Tim Tebow's autobiography, and Tim Tebow never had a second thought about going to Florida State. His two choices were Alabama and Florida, and Alabama was only because they were on the rise, and he liked what they were building there. But he took the visit to Florida State, and the only reason he took that visit was respect for Bobby Bowden, and said it was one of the coolest experiences he's ever had, and just had a tremendous amount of admiration for him. He said, if I just grew up in any other household, that may have been where I ended up, just because wanting to play for that man was really what drew me in. And I think that speaks volumes, because he had no shot of going to Florida State at that time, and to even take the visit out of respect for Bobby, I thought was really cool. And look, I know that in the eyes of many Florida State faithful, Jimbo Fisher sure receives a lot of heat, but Coach Fisher seemed genuinely choked up yesterday at his press conference, speaking about his time with Coach Bowden. He talked about having many job offers out of LSU, and the Florida State offer was like $350,000 less than some of these offers that he turned down, because he wanted to coach with Coach Bowden, and knew what Florida State could be and should be, and wanted to get it back to how Bobby had it. It wasn't just of course they didn't see eye to eye on everything. What coaching staff does, but when you really sit and think about how close Jimbo was with Terry, and he has connections with Tommy, and him and Bobby played at the same school. They were just under different names at the it's all full circle, man. And I thought that was really really classy what Coach Fisher said yesterday as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did go back and look it up. I wanted to make sure I got the date right. It was the 2003 game, the Florida State game. Chris Ricks to PK Sam, and yes, 38-34 FSU wins. And just the brawl that took place after. I'm in high school. You couldn't tell me anything. I would have been one of those guys like, yeah, let's fight. Just a high school teenage punk. And watching my team not only get the win, but also back it up in the brawl, I was like, that game sticks out to me.
Said they won the brawl too. Here's the thing about that game, Dustin, is Florida State in the first two quarters is kicking ass.
Yeah.
Okay. And then all of a sudden takes their foot off the gas, which I'm not here to blame Chris Ricks for anything, because I feel like with a different OC, we have a different opinion of Chris Ricks. But anyway, so that aside, they just let their foot off the gas, and Florida creeps back, and you're looking at the score, and you're like, what in the hell has happened here? We were kicking their ass. And then they took a last-minute heave, and when you listen to the opposite radio calls of Ricks to Sam, you listen to the Gene Deckerhoff one from Florida State, you listen to the Mick Hubert one for Florida, it's complete. You couldn't be more opposite of that call. And so that game stands out to me as well. I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing. I text-mexed before the game. I was at my aunt and uncle's house. We were house sitting. I remember everything about it. And so that's a game that sticks out for me as well. Also, a game that sticks out for me, and it's something we could kind of talk about for a brief minute here, is the Orange Bowl against Penn State, and how seeing Bobby Bowden before everything happened, seeing Bobby Bowden coach against Joe Paterno was something I'd never seen before. I thought it was awesome, and I know we kind of, some of the bowl games are much maligned now, but when you look back at, man, I was pumped for that game, and I, was really hoping Florida State would win that game.
Right.
But, even so, this brings me to the point. Give Bobby his damn wins back. The number is 389. That's the number.
It's 411 if you count the bowl games. And so,
see, I didn't know if we were counting bowl games or not. I don't know how they do that.
It's still, I don't understand why there's so many different numbers, but yeah, I agree. If you're counting regular season wins, then 389 is the number, not 377. And this is, I was gonna hold on to this, but hey, Pandora's box is open.
Go ahead. That's right, baby.
There have been so many worse things happen in college football, and the wins stand. There are two hills that I will die on. Give Bobby his wins back. Give Reggie Bush his Heisman back. And I will not change my stance on either.
We agree 100%.
I think, honestly, it makes me sick that Bobby didn't get his wins back while he was still alive. Because I do think eventually they'll reinstate those wins. They have to. And so if you do, then you're going to look like even more of an idiot that you waited until it's too late. He deserved to know that, the number was 389. And I believe he did. He took that with him. I don't think if you ask Bobby, it was 377. It's 389. So, and that's how it should be.
Absolutely. The whole thing was a fallacy. There's been so much worse things that people have gotten in trouble for, and the wins still stay. It's just ridiculous. Who cares about a phantom music class that no one ever took? Who cares? Especially now. It's really funny. Everyone got their jokes off about Free Shoes U, and look, I get it. Right is right and wrong is wrong. But man, now if that same thing happened today, it's a friend getting a deal at Dillard's, and it's weird how Florida State got the reputation of criminals when Bobby Bowden, for the most part, everyone has their hiccups, ran a pretty damn clean program when it came to off the field, and somehow they ended up with a reputation that I just don't think is very fair. But that's a can of worms I don't have to dive into. But yeah, man, the win, I would definitely put those wins back. But what brought me to that was that Orange Bowl. The Orange Bowl gets Miami, where man, there we were with a chance to avenge the earlier season loss, and they blew that game too. And Bobby's reaction. Bobby's reaction to the let's see, that would be wide left in 0-1, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah.
Bobby's reaction to that game is hilarious. I think he thought that kick was good from a million miles away. Geez, that poor man.
Yeah, and speaking of the wide left and wide right, here's another quote that. Now listen, I'll let you form your own opinions on whether this is genuine, sincere, and true or not. Because I have my thoughts about this man, Dabo Swinney. Sometimes I question his authenticity.
Me too. And
if you don't, then that's fine. I have the same questions about Tim Tebow's authenticity at times, but hey, that's a different topic. But Dabo,
I question most coaches at that level.
Yeah. Dabo, after practice today, said he spoke with Bowden a couple weeks ago. See, this is where I'm like, did you really? I mean, if you did, great.
I do think they were close.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
Because Dabo
ran his son out of town. I'm just kidding.
No, I was going to say, no, that's not how that happened. Coached under his son, and actually him and Tommy are still close. So, yeah.
Speaking of sons, let's go back a minute ago when we were talking about Chris Ricks, and you said if he had a different offense coordinator. That's also one of Coach Bowden's sons. Let's take it easy on this show.
I know, but the truth is the truth. He did a terrible job at Florida State's offense coordinator.
He did. Okay. Much respect to Jeff Bowden.
Yeah.
All love and good thoughts, and
Yeah. Oh, of course.
We just have to. Personal. yeah, it's not personal. You have to know when a match isn't a good match. But anyway, Dabo said that he spoke with Coach Bowden and told him if he got to heaven first, maybe help him out with a field goal occasionally. To which Bobby replied, "Boy, you don't want my help. I had a tendency to be wide." That's Bobby. Just always with the humor, and even he can laugh at his own shortcomings.
Right.
That's great.
Right. I don't think a lot of losses ever got to Bobby Bowden. I really don't. I think his impact. He'd rather be a father figure to his players than any win or loss could really shake him. But I bet if you asked him in a moment of honesty what games got him, those wide rights and lefts had to hurt, man. Because like he said, a few of those cost him a chance at a national championship. And, there's no disputing that. So it's just kind of funny. You mentioned Dabo Swinney. I already talked about Jimbo Fisher. Nick Saban had some really nice things to say. He told the story about how when, his dad passed, he reached out to, and this is when Nick Saban was an assistant at Kent State under, Don James, down there or up there for me. But, he told the story about how after his dad passed, Bobby had reached out to Nick and said, "You always have a job here. I heard your dad passed, you always have a job here." And, Nick Saban never forgot that. And let the record show, last time Bobby Bowden played Nick Saban, Bobby Bowden got the W, baby. Let's go.
That's right.
Let's go. Dadgummit.
Yeah, that is an incredible story, though. I mean, here's Nick Saban, just an assistant at Kent State.
No one.
No one,
Really?
a graduate assistant, I believe. And Coach Bowden took time out to say, hey, I know your mom probably needs you back closer to home to help out. You got a job. That's just character.
It's incredible. I mean, you see
And
some of these other right. Yeah. No, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, you're talking about games that probably stick out that stung a little, Coach Bowden. I have to say that 97 Sugar Bowl probably did. Florida getting the revenge.
Should have never had to play that game in the first place.
I know.
So
But
he probably wasn't thrilled about that either.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, man. I bet if you ask him some of his favorite games, the Choke-A-Doke has to be one. There's just no way it's not. That's again. I'm a little too young for the Choke-A-Doke, but I've rewatched it so many times now. I feel like I was old enough for it. And just to see Bobby's reaction to like, oh, we're not out of the game yet. All right. Well, slowly but surely, here's a score. There's a score. Everyone gets a score. Like just to watch his progression on the sideline where everyone else is kind of down or whatever. He's just like, all right, come on, headset, chewing gum, like cool. Even he wasn't always calm. You go back and watch those young Bobby clips where he takes the headset off and he's got his hands on his hips. He's not always cool, calm, collected. But as you got older and saw, well, I like to call the Papa Bowden years, just a little more even keel. And I thought, man, just to be him in that Choke-A-Doke moment was probably pretty sweet for him as far as the whole rivalry with him and Spurrier goes. Man, it's incredible the reaction from the college football world as a whole to see the stories and just every coach from the Northwest to the Northeast, the South, the West, just all over. There's somebody freaking Jack Nicklaus. He wrote him after he won his last Masters and said, "It's a good thing you didn't retire like everybody wanted you to. You wouldn't be here." So, kind of telling Jack Nicklaus, here's Jack Nicklaus, the best golfer of all time to a lot of people, and Bobby Bowden giving you advice. I mean, that's just awesome. I thought that was a cool story as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So look, we've talked about Bobby for about 50 minutes now. Just kind of looking at it here. If there's anything else that you want to say, or anything you feel, we can get out of here. We don't have to go 2 hours about that. We could. We could. Yeah. I could go from 98 to 09 about just about every damn game possible. I mean, especially those high school years where Florida State wasn't very good. There's the game against Georgia Tech where I know that Jeff Bowden was actually, I think that was a Jimbo play call, but the decision to go for it on the goal line ends up in a fumble. Bobby liked to go for it. I will say that. Bobby liked to go for it. And the punt Ruski, which is a play that Bobby came up with that they made illegal because it worked to success against Clemson. And so, just there's so many stories. They all deserve their own episode, and so we can't fit it all into one.
Yeah, there's a few things that I recommend you check out for some Bobby Bowden. Number one, first and foremost, go look up Bobby Bowden describing the punt Ruski. That's a classic story. How the play was come up with and how Leroy Butler actually almost gave it away because he was so excited about it. He started telling people, hey, we got this play, and it got back to Clemson. They just didn't know when. Yeah. So great story there. Number two, go check out the old Bobby Bowden Burger King commercial. Hilarious. Hilarious. He's walking around campus holding the football, wearing Florida State gear. And guy's got 2 cheeseburgers, and Bobby wants one. The guy says, well, okay, if you let me play basketball or baseball. Baseball is what it was. And he said, son, I coach. And he throws the football over his shoulder and says, okay, what position you want to play? Just to get a burger. And what's funny about that is I kind of believe Bobby probably came up with that. Like, that's probably that just seems like his kind of humor.
Right.
And then another thing that I recommend going to check out. I don't know how many of our listeners are wrestling fans, but I know you and I are. 1991 WCW Halloween Havoc. Former football standout Ron Simmons was making a name for himself in wrestling, and he had a big match at Halloween Havoc in Chattanooga, Tennessee against Lex Luger. And uh, Coach Bowden, they got Coach Bowden involved in the video package. So Ron went down to Florida State to quote unquote train for his big match, and there's sound bites in there of Bobby just talking to Ron. He said, I told him when he came back here, just go out there and give it all you got. And if you do that, you're gonna be fine. And it's just that's cool. It was cool to see. Number one, it was cool to see what Doak looked like back in the day. This is 1991. You look at it in 2021, it's a completely different stadium.
Right.
Number two, it's cool to see young Bobby, but young Bobby was still old Bobby. And so I think
I know. Right.
Bobby looked very similar for my entire life, I feel like.
Yeah.
But it was just a cool video package to see Florida State be involved in professional wrestling. Now, I was 3 at the time, so I only came to know this in my older years. But just a cool thing to go check out.
Absolutely. I've seen that. You sent that back when we wrote for SI, and I remember just cracking up about that. If you really want to know Bobby Bowden's legacy outside of the college football landscape as a whole, you really want to know, you just look at that stadium in the center of Tallahassee, and it just, even if you're not a fan of Florida State, I think you go to a game, you experience what that feels like with the planting of the spear and marching chiefs. When Florida State is good and right and the stars align anyway. There's not much quite like it, and it's all because of Bobby Bowden. I mean, of course, he had help along the way, but make no mistake, Bobby Bowden is the head of all of that taking place, and that stadium stands in that city, big and as the focal point of the whole town because of Bobby Bowden. And I think that's a cool legacy outside of all the off the field stuff, which we touched on earlier in the show, where everybody felt like that was their dad. And to a lot of players, he was their dad, and that's really where his legacy is. He's got a bunch of kids, man, and I think that's really awesome. And like you said, one of the and like Dan Lebertard said, one of the last good guys to do it the right way, or as right as it could possibly be done. He did it the right way, and you're not going to find much more classy individual than Coach Bowden. And man, you recommended those things. I highly recommend the Bowden Dynasty documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fantastically done. Them focusing on the Seminole rap is hilarious, and how Bobby thought that was a hoot. And there's all kind, just the Mark Rick story and how Bobby Bowden kind of saved his life after the death of a teammate, or that's the Odell story. But you get all of that, and how Mark Rick was kind of drinking and doing all this stuff, and Bobby kind of reached out to him as an extension of faith. And whether that's your thing or not, it's still a really cool story to hear Mark Rick tell it, and how he kind of again saved his life, saved his marriage, saved everything. And so Mark Rick, to hear him talk about Coach Bowden in the last 3 weeks has been fantastic. Again, just a role model and a mentor to so many. I highly recommend the Bowden Dynasty. I highly recommend reading Called the Coach, which is, for the most part, Bobby's words. I know Mark Slaybaugh helped, I believe, but that's a book I highly recommend. I have it in a Kindle file. I used to have it in a hard copy. I don't know where it went, but I definitely have it on my Kindle, so I can read it anytime I want on my phone. So again, highly recommend that. Any Bobby book, really, but those are that's the one that I highly recommend the most. And there's one.
I like it. I also like the Bound for Glory book. Chapter 18 is just full of Bobby quotes. This was as told to Mike Bynum, and I mean, it says that Bobby sat down his desk and pulled out some notes that he'd been keeping for 20-something years at this point. And there's just quote after quote after quote after quote. Things like good steel must go through the hottest fire. He says, if a dog won't do what you teach him to do, then teach him to do what he can do. That's right. And so it's just all kinds of, and I'm going to save, I know there's one Bobby quote in particular that you love that's very fitting, so I'm going to let you close us on that one. But I mean, just quote after quote of motivational and inspirational quotes. He was like you said, he was a man of faith, whether that's your thing or not. He lived his life unapologetically for God.
Absolutely.
And, it's admirable to have that kind of faith and devotion for as long as he did, and to never have that question, never be like, is it all for show? That's really who Bobby was.
Absolutely. He's very strong in his faith, very strong in his family, married to the same woman for God knows how long. Miss Ann, he always gave her credit for being the backbone of this whole thing, and he's not wrong. I'm sure she's dealt with a lot over the years, but I want a petition right here for Miss Ann to plant the spear on Sunday evening of September 4th, 2021. But that's a different story for a different day.
The fifth, yeah.
Yeah, fifth. You mentioned him being a quote machine. Was he ever? There's a million quotes that I could end this show on with Coach Bowden, but there's one in particular that I think is very fitting, and it'll get us out of here, man. Um, Coach Bowden once said, "Don't go to the grave with life unused," and no one used their time more on this earth than Coach Bowden. Coach, we love you. Dad gummit. We'll see you next time on the Lateral.